Elevated Grapes Podcast.
Elevated Grapes Podcast.
With your host, Sethi.
Your host, Sethi.
And Stylist Rashi Bindra.
It's time to get started.
Let's talk fashion, shall we?
All right, so welcome to Elevated Grapes. I am your host, Sethi.
And I'm your co-host, Rashi Bindra.
Who's also the laughing queen.
I'm just excited. I have a lot going on that's, had me very excited in the last couple of days. So
You do have a lot going on, a lot of great projects that you're working on, and we're excited to hear more about them as they progress and as you're allowed to share the information about them.
yeah, I can't talk about it right now, so I'm not gonna.
Absolutely.
I'm just excited.
Whenever you're ready. So today we're actually going to talk about something really interesting. We got a focus today on just sort of the fashion industry and how it's being impacted with everything from COVID-19. There's a lot of news recently in the market. You'll hear whether you're an investment enthusiast in the economy side of the business, even on the fashion side of the business. There's a lot of major retailers that support numerous designer brands that are struggling, some of which have claimed bankruptcy, some of which have filing bankruptcy protection, some of which are closing locations and stores. Impact is throughout the whole supply chain. So we're going to try to get into that a little bit today, both from a fashion perspective and just an economic perspective as much as we can based on the information we have. But it's an important topic to discuss. So Rashi was kind enough to send over an article which we found, sort of as our backbone for this topic. And so we're going to get into that a little bit. So maybe Rashi, you want to touch on what sort of stemmed this for you as to why you thought this was a timely conversation?
Well, I mean, I think with everything that's been, going on with COVID-19, we went through a phase of thinking this is very short term, and then we went through a phase of panic, and then we went through what is next. And during this process, what we realized is that, the bigger department stores, the bigger retailers, they're the ones who are filing for bankruptcy. But that's not only because of COVID. I mean, this has played a part in it, but also, they've been struggling from before. This has not helped the situation. But at the same time, what this is allowing, and I'm not trying to sound insensitive here, but what this is allowing is for smaller businesses to grow and start finding their niche. And this is also changing the way consumers are buying now, because people want to buy local, people want to support local, and there has to be a flow of exchange starting at some point, right? So it's a very interesting circle how this is happening. And I just find that this is very relevant to what's going on today, because we are now thinking twice before we spend money, that is not groceries or essentials right now.
So yes, I mean, I agree and I don't agree also, because the challenge in this is that a lot of brands that are larger scale or considered multinationals or, across the North America and globally, they had their start with being picked up by major retailers such as, the JCPenney's of the world. And if those brands if those entities are no longer going to be around, the ability for growth for a smaller local brand to experience that sort of exponential growth, get into major retailers, get into hands across the globe where they wouldn't have had access to, is no longer going to be available. Yes, and we're going to get into the conversation about online and e-commerce, but I think, it's also a hindrance for a lot of these smaller brands that are looking to make their names and brands a little bit bigger. I mean, the whole concept of becoming $1 billion brand right now, obviously is in flux, and nobody's really sure if that's going to happen for any major designer or clothing brand. But even to become $1 million or multi-million dollar brand, if you're a local shop in we can speak to Toronto, but for example, in Queen West, where there's a lot of different fashion hubs or fashion shops that, are small, independent, and provide really cool, different, unique styles that if you're looking for something different. But, if someone on there was going to be recognized or become a brand that would have been available to reach the level of being showcased in Neiman Marcus or a JCPenney or a larger retailer
Or
shop.
Nordstrom, yeah.
Yeah, or Nordstrom, that ability is quickly being taken away to be recognized and be in those stores. Now, to speak to the bankruptcy protection, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go under. They're closing a lot of stores. They're having a lot of challenges. They're inundated with debt, and their debt restructuring. So that's usually where bankruptcy protection comes in, because they're at that point in their economic cycle within their banking and their lending institutions that they may have to be in their special loans departments or whatever the case, because they're not able to meet the obligation of their debt. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're going under, but it's not by any means a good sign by any means.
And I see your point, but I think what we need to even consider now is that even the future of consumer shopping, right, is going to be altered whether we like it or not. Like, by no means any consumer is going to be like, hey, once things get open, I want to run into the mall. Like, no one's going to have that outlet. People are still going to be like, malls will be suffering, I find, and that is and because even there's only so much social distancing you can control. So even if you go to a pharmacy right now, right, and as like a front facing pharmacy, you have to still stand in line, and they've put, and I mean, I'm speaking for my area right now. They have like they have marked six feet apart spaces where we have to stand in line before we go in, because they only want 5 people in, or they only want 3 people in at the same time. And I don't see this changing anytime soon. I don't see, even as businesses slowly start to open, I do not see, malls being the one where people are running in to go shop, because nobody wants to be next to each other in such close proximity. People will still want to keep their distance. Front-facing shops may have a better chance of survival right now, but I don't foresee, retailers in malls, especially, getting back any of the traffic and traction they want. And I think people will be more comfortable, shopping from smaller places or people that they have the knowledge that not 10 people have been in that space right now. And I think that's going to happen for the while.
You're definitely
for
right
the next little while.
You're definitely correct from a social distancing aspect. The challenge that you're still gonna face is many malls are built around anchor shops. So in the Canadian mall system, there's Hudson Bay, there's Sears, there's a Walmart. You have to have a major anchor, and a lot of tenants. And usually, what happens in these situations, again, from a real estate standpoint, is the major retailers, the box store, the big ones, like for example, the Hudson Bays, they'll usually get somewhat of a discount or somewhat of an incentive to be in the mall, because the real estate operator or developer of the real estate management company knows that, okay, if a Hudson Bay is in that mall, there's a very good likelihood they're going to attract smaller retailers in, because smaller retailers are not a destination point, they're a walk-through point. So
right.
So if you're not a known brand, but someone has to walk past you to go to the Hudson Bay, they're likely to, or there's more opportunity for your brand to be seen, and you're going to stop into that location. Now, if for example, the larger retailer is no longer available in the mall, it's going to hurt the smaller retailer too. So to your point, the social distancing aspect is a big component of it. But if there is no one driving, no major entity driving a person to the mall, the smaller retailer is going to hurt also. So as much as, yes, big retailers do capture these massive sales because of their branding and their advertising and marketing, their ability to capture the crowd. Without them, the smaller retailer that's dependent on that mall foot traffic to come in to have the brand recognized or to have their brand be noticed and people to walk in is also going to suffer, because the larger retailer is not bringing them in. An example that this article states, is the New York Hudson Yards, where there's a Neiman Marcus. It's 188,000 square feet. Right. Now they target to, I think I'm just going to read a snippet from the article, in the lower middle market income areas, slice of the population, some of them being this specific malls cater to a wealthier demographic, but they have 188,000 square foot Neiman Marcus location there, and they have no plans for mass closures. But if that specific location was to close, the move could trigger an exodus on the mall, where smaller tenants would have been negotiated leases rent based on discounts of the the larger anchor would no longer be able to survive, or would no longer be willing to secure for longer leases.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to hurt the mall, the real estate. I mean, there's a trickle effect that's in there too. We'll post the article because I'm trying to read it quickly in snippets while I'm speaking, so you can read the full article on there. But it does give you that direct correlation between the anchored store and the smaller tenants that will sign longer leases if the anchor store is also there. The other point that I think we should also touch on and speak of is discretionary spending. You touched on it a little bit. Like at this time, no one's really going out and spending money on clothes. I mean, you may buy necessities. You know, a lot of people are purchasing items that are more for home and comfortable use because, you know, the anticipation is, yes, originally was, you know, this is a short-term couple of weeks thing, but now as people are realizing it's a longer-term situation for us, you know, what am I going to wear at home? I can't be wearing my jeans and my knits and my fancy dress shirts and my suits. You know, there's no real value in that right now. So I got to have clothes that I can interchange within the household. You know, a lot of people also, for example, like myself, I don't particularly wear joggers all the time, but, you know, I wear them usually if I'm going out or because it's cold. Now, for me to be in a comfortable pair of pants or a comfortable pair of shorts at home, you know, if I have a few, because I know that will suit my regular utilization in the week, because I know where my weekly structure is usually like. Whereas now, you know, spending 24 hours a day in my house, I'm going to need more than two pairs of you know, shorts and comfortable pants that I can wear around the house. So the consumer trend is going to change. 20.5 million Americans have lost their job as of April, which represents 14.7% unemployment rate. So if you think about that, if we can quickly even check, I don't know if you can do it on your end, what the Canadian population is, but I think it's roughly about, I mean, it's a vastly larger population in the States, but if we look at the Canadian population, it's probably about 33 to 35 million people. I mean, we're looking at almost 60% of our population. Imagine 60% of our population being unemployed. Like, that's a huge number. So just the ability to spend, even if it's on basic things, is, you know, discretionary spending is completely lost.
And, you know, it's actually, I was listening to a live at some point today when I was trying to work on stuff. And, you know, one of the things she touched on, and this goes back to our conversation, is especially if you are a small business or if you're a freelancer, this is what is hurting you now. And this is, again, you know, and this is any industry, whether you are in content creation, whether you're in digital marketing. If you're someone whose, you know, livelihood for the longest time depended on a lot of freelancing gigs and a lot of side jobs, obviously that's completely gone. But one trend we have seen that's been spiking up is within the small businesses and within certain departments or retailers, I should say, and, you know, going back to your point is, yes, you will need more comfy wear at home. You will need more joggers. You'll need more, you know, relaxed clothing. Actually, sleepwear and loungewear are the two markets right now that have picked up in their sales because, like you said, you're home all the time. You're not going to wear jeans. Your workout routine has changed. Your food habits have changed, which means your body composition, your weight, your shape, all of that is changing. And you will need to, you know, wear something that you're comfortable with or that suits you now versus even two months ago. And that's the trend that we're seeing, is that sleepwear, loungewear, Costco sales on this has shot up. And I think, and I don't really shop at Costco, and it's not because I'm a snob. I just cannot handle going to big places, all that. Like, I'm a in and out type of person. But the one thing, and let me know if this is true or not, that Costco started online shopping, which it was something that they didn't have before. And a lot of the sales that they have seen is in sleepwear, loungewear, PJs, joggers, and this is for the market who may not necessarily have a lot of spending money. It's a very reasonable rate or whatever it is. So they've started that. A lot of brands that I know have been, you know, like smaller businesses, they've been trying to get their name out by doing masks, but then matching loungewear with it, or just like, you know what I mean, just like cute joggers or shorts or something where people can be comfortable at home. So that's what I mean by, like, smaller businesses are slowly finding their niche. And I'm working on this project, and I reached out to a bunch of designers for like things, and I'm getting ridiculously delayed responses. And it's not because they are being snobbish or cold or anything. They literally are like, we're busy, so like we are so focused on our mask that we are actually like trying to figure out now how to get more fabric, how are we going to do this, like we're like selling out. So, and they're reaching different consumers, different markets. And what's going to happen with this is that the people who are buying masks from them right now, or buying, basic loungewear, they're building a relationship with this brand or with this designer, that as the income spending comes back to them, they're creating their own niche markets, and they're building that relationship. So in that sense, I mean, smaller businesses, smaller brands are, they may actually, if they play their cards right, could actually benefit from all of this.
So I think you had a couple of really important points there. I think the shift to e-commerce is very, very important. I was having a conversation with a couple of business partners this week, and this the trend of how we're shopping right now is really being shaped by this current situation. I know, for example, that I was never a big proponent. Like, I mean, and not because I have anything against the company, but I was never a big proponent of Amazon, because I would always, as I was driving home from work, I would stop at Walmart or my local grocery store or whatever the case and pick up whatever I needed. But now that I can't do that, and I'm avoiding being in lineups, and I'm avoiding being in places where there's a lot of people, a lot of my shopping has turned to online for my necessities and things I need from week to week. So I use things like Amazon. I've used Costco. I found a local grocery delivery company that will pick up from the stores I want.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, and so one of my conversations was with a business that primarily depends on a retailer that doesn't have an online presence, and they've seen their sales decline quite dramatically, and where their competition, that retailer's competition does online sales, and they've even noticed a shift from the manufacturers notice a shift from loyalty from their brand to other brands, because they don't have the access to sell online.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have their product in the other retailer shop that sells online. So having that e-commerce component to your business is super important. Now, I'm also a big proponent of supporting local businesses as much as you possibly can. So, like within your communities, within your cities, within your your current geographical areas.
Right. Yeah.
So if I know of a company that's doing their best to pivot and find a way to sell their product online, even if it's not perfect right now, and I think people are going to be a little bit forgiving. Like, if you don't have studios to go in and take proper photographs of your product,
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not the most aesthetically pleasing at this stage, but if the product is there that I'm looking for, and it's a local business, and they've been able to pivot their business to provide a e-commerce solution, they can use whatever delivery service. The manufacturer I was talking about was using a larger delivery service, like a major parcel service to the company, and they found a local delivery service who can do it for a fraction of the cost and provide a more efficient turnaround time. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, if they're able to do their research and find the resources to get this done, I'm much more likely to support them, and even getting the word out is not as difficult. If you're in a community and say there's 10,000 people in the community, you get your 10,000 flyer printed and send it to each home via post or whatever the case. And like, if it's sent to me and it's like, hey, this place is 5 minutes away from me, and they sell all the groceries I need and they'll deliver it, I would 100% support them, because
Yep.
it's a local business. I want them to survive, because I want them to be around when I can go and actually shop as well. And the other thing that you mentioned, really, really important, there was a supply chain. Now, if you're a manufacturer of, I don't know, let's call it, the brooches, they have fabric, and then they also have
Mm-hmm.
metal sometimes in the middle of it. But the supplier that you're getting the fabric from is no longer around. You're no longer able to make that brooch, right? Or the metal producer is not able to supply to you because he only has enough metal to send to his other customers, because he's not getting enough metal to support all his customers, but he's going to make more margin off the other buyer, then he's not going to sell it to you either, right? So you, as an end producer of a product, is so reliant on your complete supply chain. If one proponent of that supply chain is interrupted, your product's interrupted, and as is the ability for that store to sell it. And just to say you're sending it to a local retailer. So it's not
Mhm.
just frontline retailer that's impacted. It's that whole supply chain for that product to get to that frontline retailer.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with this designer, and we were talking about some future work, and she was like, I want to send you some of my products so you have an idea, how I can like how we can work on this stuff together. And she's like, but if like, can you wait till end of June? Can you wait till July? Because I only have so much fabric, and this e-commerce platform that I am, they
Mm-hmm.
also need me to, put my products up there, and I can't go and get any fabric right now. And my line, or what I'm all about, is dependent on these certain types of, fabrics and all of those things. And she's not the first designer that I'm having this conversation with. A lot of them are in, and like as you said, in that boat of, we we are getting the opportunity to survive this and build our niche markets, but we also have a supply chain problem at the moment, whether it's on a macro or a micro level. And to your point about supporting local businesses and shopping online, I mean, I shop certain things online because I sometimes get very lazy to go to the west end of the world where I live. So I will try and shop that stuff online. And I also live northeast of God knows where, so it's very so it's very easy for like me to get lazy.
Let's be honest. You live at the edge of the world.
Yes, I live near a forest.
You literally to get to Rashi's place, you got to go through 4 different forests and these roads with no lights on them.
True, depending on how you're coming to my place, yes, and be very careful in winter because I want everybody to be like alive, and I'm like, please let me know when you're home. Thank you for dropping me.
At the end of the scary road is that vision board that you have behind you.
Exactly, there you go. It's like, ta-da, the light.
Yeah, the light at the end of the tunnel is that vision board.
And so I was talking to one of my friends, and I'm like, I really need this, and I actually don't even need it. I just kind of want it right now. And she gave me the name of this boutique, which is based in your neck of the woods, actually, on the West End. And I was like, what I'm getting from her, normally I would go downtown Toronto. There's a store that I like and I support in my spiritual, journey, and I buy my stuff from there. And I'm like, well, I can't do that right now. This is what I need. So I was like, hey, so and so person told me, how do you work? And for me, that's also a shift, because I'm gonna get a product that I'm trusting. I've and I prefer certain things to, go to a store, feel it, touch it, get that experience, and then purchase it versus just doing it online. And it's also a shift for me. But you know what? At the same time, this local business is still making money and is still surviving, because her response to me was, I would love to make this for you and I'm going to do it. Can I please just get this done after Mother's Day's orders? Because, I got a bunch of them. And I wasn't even at, oh my God, why, blah, blah, blah. I was like, this is actually really great that because of Mother's Day, because of, certain reasons, these smaller niches, these smaller businesses are being funded somehow, some way. And it's not that they're charging overly crazy prices as well for what I want. She's like, yeah, I'm giving you a discount. And I'm like, that's actually a really good price. I was worried it'd be a lot more expensive. You know what I mean? So it's a nice way that this is slowly picking up for the smaller people. I mean, people like designers.
Well, I think there's, as we had our conversation last week with Jackie, I think there's a human component to it. Like, I think, good people who are in this and realize that everybody's in this together are going to do their best to obviously survive, make a profit on their product, but they're not looking to gouge their consumer, because the long-term effect of that is if you piss off your consumer right now, your likelihood to lose them in the long term is a lot greater, right? Yep. Everybody's trying to look out. Everybody's trying to watch their pocket. Everyone's trying to budget a little bit differently. I think everyone's eyes are open to free for all spending, and that being such a big issue. If 20 million or 14%, almost 15% of the U.S. market right now is unemployed, But imagine the amount of credit card debt that they may have, or mortgage debt that they may have, and their ability to spend right now has completely changed. And if they've been carrying debt because they were just dependent on the next paycheck, and now they don't have a job or that paycheck to come in, imagine how scared they would be, or how scared you'd be in that situation. And now think about your mindset about going forward. I mean, people have a tendency to forget it. 5 years from now, everything's fine, and they think they're invincible again. They're going to make the same mistakes. But those that are paying attention to what's happening right now are thinking to themselves, well, I cut myself really thin every month or every paycheck because of the lifestyle I'm trying to lead. For some people, and this is not to speak insensitive, because some people it's a necessity. They have certain expenses, whether they have kids or that sort of thing. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to manage, depending on the type of job you have, and based on the standard of living today. But for those that are abusing their discretionary spending, this is and I'm one of them. Like I spend freely when things are great, and this, as much as I have the ability to now take that step back and say, oh my God, these are terrible mistakes I've been making, whereas I could have had so much more in my savings for a time like this. So I try to balance my savings and my spending, not to say that, and that's to say that I probably could have done a better job at it, because you realize that right now that you probably spend a lot more free than even if your ability to save is there, because you don't know or can't anticipate that something like this is going to happen, and you're going to need your savings and your nesting pot to dip into. So I think that's a really important piece. Now, the other piece that you touched on, sort of with respect to that friend of yours that wants to sell you the product and ask you to wait till after Mother's Day, is inventory management. And that's exactly what she's doing, because she knows, okay, I have a finite amount of inventory I can use. I know I'm going to be picking up orders for Mother's Day because of the type of product that I'm selling. So I need to manage that inventory, because I also know that in order for me to get more inventory, I have to order it from my supplier. My supplier's shipping time may be delayed. They may be having their own challenges. They also may not have as much inventory as they did in the past. It's as quickly available to me as I would have liked. So when I am making or picking up orders, I got to make sure that I manage the orders in effect to make my end consumer, in this case you, satisfied. Because if she makes a promise to you and doesn't deliver on it, not that you won't be forgiving in the situation, but you're also thinking to yourself, well, she's probably cool, but I got to also look at other resources to make sure if I need this product, I have access to it, because she may not. Or if she's upfront with you about it, says, here's how I can deliver and promise on my delivery. As a consumer, you're going to be a lot more respectful of the fact that she's being upfront with you.
And it's to your point, it's that human aspect, right? Like this, I reached out to her because two of my girlfriends were like, we've gotten our stuff done from her, like she may be what you need right now, or like what you're like searching for. I'm like, okay, cool. And she was very pleasant, very helpful, very, very great. I will highly always recommend her, just with the very positive experience that I've had so far. And it got me thinking back to a client that I had a couple of weeks ago. I was doing a bunch of free giveaways to like promote what I'm trying to build. And, I told her, yes, I can actually do this in like a couple of days. But due to family stuff, due to being sick, a bunch of things came up that got a bit delayed to like a couple of extra days, which I had messaged her and told her, I'm not, ignoring you, but I'm going through this right now. Give me a couple of more days and I'll get to you. And her response to me wasn't that forgiving. Yes, it's a free service, and that's totally fine. And she took what she needed from there. But her response to me wasn't that forgiving. Mind you, there were a couple of others who were totally like amazing, and they were really, really great about it. And this is not to say anything against her. Everybody has a different mindset, but as a consumer and as a business, the lesson from here is what stays with you. Like for me, I don't need this product right now from this business that urgently. Like I can still wait till next week and stuff like that. But just the fact that she spent the entire afternoon making me feel comfortable that I have this and all of that, and I'll get to you. And then as a business, the way the other person responded to me was, well, how can you run a business if you're going to be 2 days late with your stuff?
It's the experience that she created. Because sorry, we're going to take a quick break right now, and we're going to come right back after these messages.
Hey guys, we're taking a quick break just to remind you where you can find our podcast online.
You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Tunes.
Apple Music, but you know it, you call it Apple Tunes.
Whatever.
Right. You can also find us on TuneIn, on Google Play, and of course Instagram when we do it the first Tuesday of every month.
And Facebook here and there.
Here and there.
Here and there.
So thanks for tuning in, and now back to our podcast.
My face is fat today.
And we are back with Rashi's fat face.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit like ding, like this. And I did that on my podcast.
I'm not sure if we caught that in the recording, but Rashi's comment as we were resetting our cameras was, "My face is fat, guys. My face is fat. Look at it. It's a little bit stretchy today."
It's a bit round. I think it's that breakfast that I had. It went straight to my cheeks.
Yeah, Rashi had this. She sent us breakfast, and it literally looked like it came out of it looked like a magazine picture.
It was so good.
Well,
So
it caused me to go and eat a lot of food because it just made me hungry right away.
I've not eaten anything since then, but it was just like so good.
Would you like to share with the listeners what it is? Because all we're doing is talking about it and not telling them what it is.
Okay, so I love bagels. I specifically like bagels from Montreal and New York.
Yeah, let's put background. So Rashi was born and raised, well, not born and raised, but she spent a large part of her life in Montreal. Montreal is known very much so for its bagels. When I'm there, Rashi tells me and sends me a list of shops I have to go to try different bagels. And I'm like, I'm only one person. I can only eat so many bagels at one time. But she's like, I don't care. You got to try all these bagels all the time. So every time I go there, I get a list of places I got to go try bagels. So anyways, back to your bagel story, because we have to give some context as to why you love bagels so much.
Yes, that's true. So I love bagels, and I'm one of those people who love carbs. Like if you give me bread and cheese and wine, like you've made my day, essentially.
Okay, you got to listen here. Everybody loves carbs. It's just that some people choose or try not to eat it. And there's no person in this world that doesn't love carbs.
There might be some, who knows?
No,
There
everybody
might be some, who
loves.
knows.
Listen, getting a good piece of warm hot bread
Ooh,
sitting
with
at a restaurant.
butter. Oh.
Yeah, or if you're like even like if you have like a maple butter or something. Oh my God, like there's nobody in the world. Garlic butter.
There's one spot where one of my friends in Montreal lives, and I'm gonna get you that name.
Okay, see, this is exactly what I talk about. Rashi will send you a list of places you have to go to when you go to Montreal just to get bagels or bread or carbs.
Okay, so this bread is olive bread, but it's so soft and it is so good that even if you don't like olives, you'll fall in love with olives. And so once I was like, I got the loaf and I'm like chilling at my friend's apartment and I'm like, do you want some? And she's like, no, not right now. I'll have it later. I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. And she like, leave some for me. I'm like, okay. I finished the entire loaf by myself and I didn't leave any for her. And it was the last one at the bakery. That's how much I love bread from Montreal, okay? I will eat. Mind you, I was like, really? You could not leave me like one tiny piece? I was like, sorry, bread, olive, hot butter, what do you expect, But anyways, so in the past couple of years, due to some health issues, I don't eat bread as much as I like to eat bread. And now with my, sister and like everyone staying home, because they enjoy bagels, they got some bagels that I once in a while can eat and enjoy it. So this morning, I think I've been extremely happy the past few days as well. This morning, I decide to make an omelet sandwich, but with the bagel. So I take this omelet, I put some spinach. I don't eat meat, but I put like the vegetarian version of like turkey in it. I put some cheese in it, and I put the cheese right in the middle. So when you like slice the omelet, it like literally drips and melts of cheese. So after the omelet's made, right before I'm about to put it on the bagel, I slice it in half, and the cheese starts melting and dripping, and I put it on the bagel, and I slice it, and then I take hot sauce, and I take a hash brown, like the baked hash browns with coffee, and I was like melting in happiness and desire. Like that was an orgasm in my mouth. That's what it was. And yes, I said this on my podcast.
So for those listeners that went to take a quick break and walk and get some food while they were listening, Rashi just spent 3 minutes talking about a bagel. just so that you're aware. A bagel sandwich. Just so that you're aware. And what I was actually doing that whole time is thinking to myself that I don't like my side part on this side. I'm better off doing it the other side. I think it just works better for me.
Yeah, true. You have a very particular side profile that looks that looks good on you. Like not this, but this other one suits you a lot
No, but
better.
the way I comb my hair this time, like I usually do my side part this way, whereas I did it this way this time, and I just realized I don't like it this way. But I just tried it today.
Yeah, that's true. Turn your face again this way. No. Okay, now the other way. Yeah, I like your face this way better.
Yeah, I've been told this is my. Oh, I don't know what side. I've been told one of the sides.
No, not this side. That side. The one that yes, that looks better. I think that's the side you sent us when you tried to like fix your own hair at home. Like you tried to cut it. He finally cut his hair, by the way.
No, I sent you this side.
This side it was. Mm-hmm. You sent a side that I was like, okay, you don't look so bad.
I sent this side, but my hair wasn't combed and it was just down.
But like, see, when I'm seeing you now, I like your other side of your face better.
This way?
Yes. You should do the podcast just that way, just like this.
Just sit like this the whole time?
Yes.
What are you trying to say? The front of my face is terrible?
I didn't say the word terrible. I have a preference on the side of your face, okay?
So I apologize for those listeners that are listening on any one of the streaming apps because you don't get to see the craziness that's going on right now. But do walk over
to our YouTube channel,
and you'll see exactly what's happening. We're just basically analyzing my face from front and back and side to side. And so actually, I did cut my own hair, which I was technically going to make a video of, but then I was so confused as to how to do this that in the moment I forgot to make the video when I started. So next time I do it, I will make the video. Which I actually ordered the product off of Costco. I ordered some clippers, and it was really cool because it was a dual-sided clipper that actually, so the clippers are extend out of both sides. So when you're shaving up and down, it's getting the bottom and the top, or if you're going side to side, it's getting both sides of it as it's shaving. So it actually makes it a lot easier. So the way I did it was, this is really important for everybody, but I feel like to share it because it's important. Is I just actually went around my whole head like a bowl almost first and shaved all around and then shaved underneath and then tried to trim the sides. So the fade is not perfect. I'm not going to lie, obviously. But with that being said, it's not bad considering I did it by myself in my washroom. So I can live with it until I go to a barber shop or a salon and get it fixed.
So guys, just to give a bit more context here, whenever we hang out, this is exactly what happens. What you hear and see on the podcast, actually what happens when we're not recording. We can sit and have the most stupidest conversations and completely entertain ourselves, and there's no issue.
First of all, you listen here. This is very important information for our male listeners who are trying to figure out how to comb their hair and cut their hair.
You should just do a video about it.
Did you not listen to what I just said?
I sometimes zone out when you talk, but yes, I did listen to this. But I'm just reminding you to do it.
Yeah, I did. I totally. I had everything set up. But then I forgot to hit record when I started because I was just nervous about cutting my own hair. My alternate backup was first. So I usually started with a higher level razor. So like as a male, you can go down to 0 here and sort of 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I started with a 4 just to see if I could do it. And if it wasn't going to work, I was just going to shave my whole head at a 4.
Holy fuck! No, I wasn't expecting that.
So now that I know I can figure this out, I will record it next time to show how I get this done.
Yes, and anyways, my idea of that comment was just to let our listeners know that this is us in real life. Like the time we all watched a movie and you wanted to kill me at some point, but you didn't. So yes.
Yeah, Rashi is hyper.
Social distancing movie, by the way. Yeah,
so there was 3 of us that got together and decided that it was a wise idea to watch a really old popular movie together, and we, I thought this would be kind of fun because you get to banter along with it. First of all, I didn't know it was a phone call based viewing because.
What were you expecting, a Zoom call?
No, I was just anticipating we'd chat on WhatsApp as we're all watching.
No, we don't do that. Come on.
So the challenge, obviously, while you're on the phone with other people watching, is you hear echo. So as I'm hearing a part of the movie, 2 seconds later I hear on Rashi's, and 2 seconds later I hear my other buddies. So like we're all watching it at different times, trying to line it up. So every 20 minutes, we're like, all right, everyone pause. What minute are you at in the movie? What second are you at? So frustrating on its own. And then on top of that, you have Rashi who's like crying, and the other person was Pat. So Patrick and I are literally laughing at every part, saying this is so corny. And Rashi's like, but no, it's so sweet. I mean, they're not real people, Rashi. Let's all calm down.
And then I overanalyzed it.
Yeah, Rashi basically turned this rom-com into the first Matrix and started analyzing, well, what if her love really meant this? And what it might, dude, it's a simple love story. Just follow along, enjoy it. Let's all laugh at the moments they're expecting us to laugh at. Let's all cry at the moment they're like, but cry with yourself on mute because I don't want to hear your wailing.
And what happened after this, I put it, I on our group chat, I'm like, guys, next week, do you want to watch a movie? I want to watch this. Nobody has replied me yet.
Well, what Rashi, before she did that, she actually went on about her analysis of the love story on the group chat and sent the whole paragraph of why she thinks the love story should have been written in a different manner or whatever. I couldn't even finish reading it. It was a disaster.
Well, we tried and we'll try again. Great minds have different ways of, thinking about stuff.
I don't know what you're saying right now, but just stop. Okay, let's go back to our topic at hand, because I'm pretty sure our listeners are like, what the heck is going on? Some of them may have tuned out already, because we're not talking about the topic at hand right now. So, what I wanted to get into is sort of where. So for those that are still looking to maintain a brick and mortar type of location or build off of the non-e-commerce base, I do think every business at this stage should be looking at how they can pivot and incorporate some sort of e-commerce into their business. It's not necessarily easy for, if it's a service-based business, if you're like an entertainment AV company, like really, unless you can provide, you have the know-how to provide, ability for streaming services and that sort of thing. I mean, but if your main business is AV services at events, I mean, you're going to be in trouble for a little bit of time. But, for a retailer or a fashion company that is dependent on a local community or a walk-in foot traffic, like you said, a lot of things that I buy, I'm buying things right now that I need and that I can understand online, but there's certain things, just like you said, I'm not comfortable buying unless I touch or feel it, right? I'm not necessarily going to buy a pair of jeans unless I try it on. Even if, I've bought actually a couple of pairs of pants online and luckily they worked out. But generally speaking, I would want to try my jeans. And if I'm looking for a specific style of jean, then I'm going to go to a few different shops, try on the ones I like, which would fit my style, and then purchase the one I like. Whereas, certain people may be able to do that and some people, but I think what the brick and mortar concept is going to look into is, or have to move into, is if a lot of these major retailers and anchor shops are going to have trouble sticking around or struggle or, have to file for bankruptcy or whatever the case is, the smaller retailers that are dependent on that foot traffic or dependent on the person walking into their store or having a visual of their store may have to be in sort of like a mixed use area. For example, going back to the Hudson Yards, Neiman Marcus is which is a anchor for that location, but Hudson Yards is also in a residence/office building. So if you're in a mixed use building that where there's residences and office, if you have a massive condo building with 30 floors in it, you have a captive audience there if you have a store underneath it, right? That provides a specific type of fashion style that may be good for that market. Like if it's in, if we're talking about Toronto, for example, if you are in one of the apartment buildings that's on Queen West and you provide the type of gear that a Queen West person would enjoy dressing in, you still may be able to survive because you have your target market and audience right at your doorstep, right? So I think understanding what your demographics is, who your end consumer is, and understanding that market and seeing if you still feel like you need to do a brick and mortar type of shop, how can you create and make that happen without being dependent on an anchor retailer so your product can still get out there? And I keep referring back to Queen West because I think that's a perfect example of the type of area that has a very niche market, but also has a captive audience, and a lot of people that live in that area also dine in that area, also shop in that area, also their whole life is centered on the area because it caters to the mindset of the demographics that's in that area.
And I think at this point, what's also a little bit difficult, I should say, and uncertain also is going to be, as a business, as a retailer, as a brand, we didn't foresee any of this. And going forward, it's going to be like, how do I, pandemic proof my business for any sort of crisis that could happen? Am I going to is my business accessible online, you know, as you were saying? And the way I think malls will suffer. That is the bottom line of it. Whether we like it, whether we not, whether, you know what I mean, we don't want it to happen, that is going to be the case for the foreseeable future.
Malls are facing a challenge anyway. This is exacerbated it.
Yes, and you know, one of the reasons being is, malls will not give that boutique experience certain demographics like, and certain target markets like, and that's 100%. And that's where we were heading towards anyway. So I mean, yes, unless you have families and you have kids and there's something very specific that works with your lifestyle, that's where, you know, that's still a very mall driven lifestyle type of thing. And I lost my train of thought a little bit actually, but a lot of us were going through the whole, like, I want something unique, I want the experience,
Hold on a second. Did you just confuse yourself in your own conversation with yourself?
Yes.
I just want to make that very clear.
It happens once in a while, guys. My brain sometimes goes a bit fast.
No, there's no justification needed. Rashi was headed in a direction on a topic that she brought up, lost her way in her own conversation, and then went into a completely different topic. This is by far probably my favorite podcast that we've done so far.
This is how we have our conversation, guys, and that's why he's enjoying this so much, because he's like, I can prove this.
I'm leaving it where I've stated it, and the rest people can make their own assertions.
Thanks.
Continue, please, with whatever you were talking about, because I don't even think you know.
God. I forgot. Okay, I was trying to make a point. I lost my train of thought, and I forgot right now, thanks to your last thingy about
you can go ahead and blame it on me, that's fine, but you already lost your way with your train of thought before I even made the comment.
Our generation and people and we were heading towards towards a lifestyle and target market and an experience that we wanted things to be unique, different. We were still captivated by that influencer world, which has changed, which is totally changed, especially now with the pandemic. That's not happening anymore. People are not going to be so about the influencers' lifestyle, about malls and things like that. So unfortunately, whether we like it or not, malls will be suffering. Malls are going to have a really, really hard time coming out of this. But the brands that are in the malls and that are in, you know, specific areas and that are front facing stores can actually have a chance of survival depending how they restructure and re-strategize that, right? Because let's say if we take a Zara's in the malls right now will suffer, but Zara's on, you know, Queen Street West, for example, they will still have a higher chance. Like that specific store will have a higher chance of getting their sales as, you know, businesses slowly open up, because you don't mind in summer doing the social distancing way of having people come in the store. What will change is the whole exchange and return policy. There were times where, you know, you could keep an item for like 30 days, return and exchange that. That's not going to be the case anymore, because with all of this, no retailer is going to have a lenient, you know, exchange and return policy. They'll be like, this is final sale. And that's going to affect consumer spending habits big time. Big time.
Yeah, I just, you know, and as you're speaking, I'm reading the continuation of this article, and it's going to be very, very difficult for people to even trust the safety of going back into the malls, like you said earlier. Like, I don't think that we're going to see that massive return. Like, one of the things that they're pointing out in this article is, you know, so in the States, for example, the estimated loss is about $150 billion in lost sales in last month. So I think they're referring to April in this article.
April.
Yeah, so it's referring to April in this article. The companies that do reopen face wide-facing challenges adopting to new safety procedures and bringing back some of the roughly 1.3 billion U.S. store employees that were let go or were not working. So you look at that. You look at numbers like Hong Kong retail sales down 42%. Hugo Boss expects 50% sales decline in the second quarter. Chinese shoppers will represent 50% of the luxury audience after the pandemic. So there's news about that. Europe is starting to open. Even looking at Aldo, for example, which has an online component or an e-commerce component to its business, it's still facing the same challenges. So I think e-commerce is one component of it, but I also think how you pivot and what you sell is super important to it. One of the webinars I was listening to was exactly this: the supply chain and the fashion market. You listen to different designers and brands. I think you listened to that one as well, the webinar that we were listening to, and they were talking about if you're a suit manufacturer and you focus on bespoke, or made to measure suits or even off the rack suits, it's not like that's what your brand is known as. For you to flip over and be like, okay, now all of a sudden I'm gonna sell joggers and t-shirts for home. Your ability to pivot into that market and for your brand to recognize that this is now what you sell is not an easy task. It's not the mind of the consumer is not going to necessarily. I don't think when I think of let me think of a brand that's it's like Xenia. It's a suit manufacturer. If they were to all of a sudden decide to sell t-shirts and hoodies, like I wouldn't even know about it. I wouldn't even like I'm thinking if I want t-shirts and hoodies, I'm going to Old Navy or I'm going to go to a local shop that has like basic like comfortable wear, or I might check on Amazon or whatever the case. But the brand doesn't even matter at that stage to me because I'm wearing it at home. It's not necessarily that I'm looking for the best quality or best cut. I'm looking for something that's comfortable, it's going to last me some time, and it's going to be easy to wear. So but I don't necessarily think of a Hugo Boss for that necessarily. Now, I mean, obviously it depends on your scale and sort of like what demographics are in. Some people, yes, they buy their joggers from Hugo Boss too. So, so I guess it really depends. But my point in making that is that I think you automatically associate certain brands with certain types of demographics or certain types of clothes. So for you to think about them in terms of what you need today and how you're going to shop today and where the consumer trends are going, they may not be correlated or associated. It's going to be hard for companies like that to pivot, even if they have an online presence. Although sell shoes, that they could sell slippers, they could sell house shoes, they could sell things that are more geared towards being at home, accessories such as maybe like socks or feet warmers or whatever the case to cater to that market. But for someone to, as a brand, to start to associate them with that, it's not an overnight flip of a switch that's just going to happen.
No,
it takes time for that brand recognition to come through.
And I think what's the next challenge that's going to be is, as you pivot online, and I know you've spoken about this a little bit, but as you pivot online or as you introduce new products and services to what you have and what you're doing, and I'm talking specifically for smaller businesses right now, the challenge will be marketing that and reaching those target markets and those demographics, and marketing also takes time. Very
Absolutely.
few businesses or brands or services are able to pivot online right away and still keep their core being. But in general, it's very difficult to pivot online because that's a whole different way of building and working with your products and services. If you're introducing something new, which could be a want or a need right now, in this time, that's also one case and that's also something that you're trying to like navigate. And then you have to market, you have to hit those, like you have to figure out how you're going to reach those consumers without sounding insensitive. So really, I mean, whichever way we look at this, whether it is from a mall perspective or from retailers, from small businesses, none of this is very fruitful for the majority, and none of it's going to be very, very easy. In the next 6 months, it actually essentially the rest of the year is going to be more of a wait and watch and see month by month how things are happening, because what we thought in March what was going to happen has taken a completely different turn, and we're in May right now. And I know both you and I have been experiencing that in what we do as well. So it's it's not a great time from a business perspective. That
Well,
is
there's
for
also
sure.
there's also the secondary factor that, like, you said month to month, which is accurate. You said, with the 2020 is going to be a challenge based on the way it's going. But let's take a different approach from that as well. We are at the brink of certain economies opening up, certain states in the U.S. I mean, I think
Yeah.
43 of the 50, like the 43 states have opened, I think, currently, to some degree, and there are various different scales, different parts of the economy and geographically around the world are starting to open up. But we don't know what the impact of that is going to be. The pandemic or the actual virus there's no vaccine to it. There's no ways to prevent or
Mm-mm.
minimize it if you get hit with it. I mean, luckily, a large portion of the population, if they get it, are asymptomatic, but you don't know the effect based on everybody's immune system and the impact of it long term and what it could have on you. All that research is being done. So today we start to open up certain economies, and they're going to do it on a phased basis. Certain types of businesses and industries opening
Yeah.
back up slowly. There's still an expectation that there's going to be a second wave of this in the fall when regular flu season hits. And if you combine weaker immune systems at that time with the impact of potentially getting both the regular strain of flu and the COVID-19 flu, we don't know what the impact of that's going to be, how those two interact together, and what the impact on the human body is it going to be, and the spread of it. So if we start to open up today, and certain I know that they're watching, like both health experts and governments are watching it very closely, to open up certain sectors of the economy today, and that spikes the spread a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's going to be a scale back. What if we have to continue with the complete shutdown for a longer period of time, and we're not ready for? The longer impact on the economy, both in the fashion and retail industries and outside of that, is so scary at this stage, just because of the potential impact long term here. If the second wave hits and it's more dire than what we've currently been facing, or even if they start to open up one sector of the economy and right away they see that there's been a spike or the cases are increasing,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to shut us down again. And what happens to the economy? These retailers, J.C. Penney's, the Victoria's Secrets, the Aldos, like all these major companies that are facing these challenges and are filing for bankruptcy protection or closing down locations. The long-term impact of these massive, I call them tanks because they're huge companies.
Yeah.
We could very well see them disappear in the long term. It may be a slow process, but we could very well see them disappear.
And you know what, Sadr, like to your point, one thing I will say is that I personally feel,
when
and I know a lot of
Rashi
people,
says my name in a sentence, it's very serious.
that we're not ready even for phase one. Like, we're not ready to open. No one is dying to go outside and shop. Yes, I understand that there is a social and psychological need and responsibility amongst as a human being to meet people outside your household and have that face-to-face interaction. That's totally fine. That's totally understandable. The whole need to sit outside and go for a walk and meet your boyfriend or your best friend or whatever the case is, or your girlfriend, all that stuff, I'm not taking that away from a human perspective. But from the larger picture, are we ready to go back to normal, or are we ready to go back to the real world right now? No, we're not, because people, like, we're still getting numbers, we're still getting news of people being infected, of this happening, of that happening. So the thought of opening, even slowly opening anything right now, any sector of the economy, which I see it from a macro level. I see why they want to do that. But from the other side, it's still very scary. And not everybody wants that right now. Not everybody's ready to go back to that life right now. So
the mindset and the
implication,
shifting that mindset is not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy. So you have that. So when that second wave happens, because it will happen if this goes on, right? It's going to be even more.
Predictions from Rashi.
It'll be even more difficult for people. It'll be even more difficult for people after phase two to go back to some sort of a new normal. And this affects you as a human being, psychologically, emotionally, mentally, socially. You will think twice about going even to your friend's house to even grab a drink with them. You will, like, living in a very different kind of fear is not good for your nervous system. And we can get into that on our next episode, because I have a feeling this will then be like a 3-hour conversation. But I am not in agreement with this whole phase one thing happening, by the way. I'm not. Okay, so I plan to sit at home.
Perfect. So Rashi's staying home. So guys, we're going to take another quick break and we're going to come back with our closing thoughts. We'll be right back. And we are back. So Rashi gave a whole soliloquy or speech out there that, she could probably stand up at the White House and give her little speech and give her take on where we're ready and we're not ready. We call them hashtag Rashi predictions.
Dear God.
Here at the Elevated Grapes office. So let's sort of share. I mean, if you want to extend, or let me go first. I'm going to share a couple of final thoughts, and then Rashi, you can spew on. I'll probably take a quick break and walk out of the scene while you're spewing. But
very funny. Just stay on the scene, okay? Let's not scare our listeners away.
Remember that episode where I poofed and disappeared?
Yes, they actually thought like something happened.
We could easily make that happen. So just to give some final thoughts, obviously as scary as it is, watching big retailers, sort of fall the way we're seeing it right now, really opens your eyes as to the economic impact of this pandemic. Mm-hmm. It's scary from a health perspective, definitely, and I think to Rashi's point, and we're making light of it, which we probably shouldn't, but to Rashi's point, are we ready to start to slowly open up, even if it's in phases? I don't know the answer to that. I think in the absence of having a vaccine or some sort of preventative measure, I think it is scary to open, and the psychological impact of what we've been through in the last 2 months is going to have grave effects on a lot of people. And the ability to shift from, okay, now I'm able, from being told to stay home all the time, to, okay, I'm allowed to go to my local garden mm-hmm. shop and pick up flowers and wait in line and be around other people to plant for the spring, is a big mindset. And I think some people will be okay with it, and you'll probably see an influx of people lining up to do that, but a large part of the market won't, just in fear of not knowing. And having not knowing is a harder fear to face than knowing and then facing a fear, because the unknown is so challenging to understand. Now you couple that with the impact on the economy in the long term, you're going to get your chance to give your final thoughts. Calm down, Rashi.
I didn't say anything.
I could hear it. I could hear it in your silence. Listen to the silence.
Listen to the silence.
So you couple that with the impact of large retailers like the JCPenney's, like the Aldos, like these mammoth companies that are such everyday brands for us when we walk into a mall, or whether we're shopping online, or just that we associate with on the day-to-day. Like you think about these, and these are staples in our life. Like we don't think that these kind of giants mm-hmm. can fall, but now they are at the brink of falling, and that opens up a whole other world of challenges and economy. And they talk about it being a recession. How deep will this recession go? 14 or 15% unemployment is incredible. Like it's such a, like they haven't seen those kind of numbers since the Great Depression in the 30s. It's a like the sheer mammoth impact of that, or that number is so crazy. Like 20 million people in the U.S. are out of jobs right now. Like the U.S. is a first world country. Just to think that 20 million people are going to be at that level, the poverty line or below, is very, very scary. And obviously discretionary income, people's ability to spend, consumer spending habits, those trends. The fashion industry on its own is at such a weird spot right now. The ability for that to continue on in the way that we've thought it always
mm-hmm.
will is scary. We're going to be having a couple of guests on in the near future that are bespoke fashion designers, made to measure designers, just to get their take on how they're dealing with and the impact on their businesses, and how they're working with their consumers, the pivots they're making, just to get their side of it. But it's a very, very scary time. So I think we have to watch this, obviously monitor it very closely. I do agree with Rashi that I don't think we're ready to get out there and start even opening up in phases. I don't think we fully understand the impact of this. I'm not a health practitioner or scientist, but it is a very scary situation to walk into without having a vaccine and without having some sort of preventative measure. If you get the flu today, you can get antibiotics, and you can make your way through the flu. It's not that you can't get it, but there's at least a 7-day cycle, whatever it is, a 14-day cycle. You're going to feel like crap for those 14 days. It does feel gut-wrenching, but you're going to make it through. With this specific virus, we don't know. We don't know the impact of the strand. Now they're saying there's a second or whatever other strands that are coming out that are even more lethal. And then if you couple that with flu season, the way that there's expected in fall, like mm-hmm. all these things that we're hearing, it's very scary. And I think our safety is most important. It's really tough to see people going through the economic challenges and the impact on their mental health and their family economic situation. I mean, if I were to lose my job tomorrow, it would be scary. Like I don't know how I would be able to manage this. So people going through it, I mean, I feel for them, but we have to also find that balance between safety and managing our economic impact.
you said a lot of things that I was like that I wanted to respond to.
It's your final
yes.
thought. Take your time.
Do you really want me to take my time?
I might just start eating a muffin. I'm not gonna lie.
I thought we weren't allowed to eat during our podcast after my noodles.
Yeah, well, you don't know how to eat in silence.
What the hell?
Go back and listen to that show. You'll see what I'm talking about. Or you're clinging and clanging.
Clinking.
Yeah.
Clinking.
Yeah, thanks.
I told you, Sons of Rashi is like coming back.
Okay. I'm gonna put my mic. I'm gonna put my mic on mute so you can speak freely and I won't interrupt you.
Thank God for that. Finally, this is what I deal with, guys. Okay, so to your point, yes, we're not ready to go back at all, and I firmly stand by this. And it's, you know what, it's not even just from a psychological, perspective. It's okay. If we're gonna go back to a, quote unquote normal way of living, how do you control social distancing? How do you control certain things? Because what's happened here and what people have to realize is that this is not like a terrorist attack. This is not a gun shooting. This is not, racism. This is none of those things. What's actually happening here is that human to human contact. You actually eating a muffin? Anyways, sorry. Wait, what kind of muffin? What kind?
It's oatmeal and raisin. Homemade. Continue.
Yummy. Anyways, yes. So what's happening here? Human to human contact. That's what has shifted. How you, like, I mean, even when you go back to like slowly meeting your friend or going on a date or things like that, you're not gonna right away shake hands with the person. You're not gonna go give them a hug. Let's
be real. You don't even date when we're allowed to date.
Okay, I'm not talking about me. But just
this podcast has been so much fun. I'll continue. Continue, please.
I don't date for a lot of reasons.
I'm not saying what the reasons are. I'm just saying you don't under normal circumstances. Please continue.
Thanks for putting my dating life out there. I hope my mother does not listen to this right now. But anyways, my point is, when you go out, you are not going to go, hug your friend. You will not go jump into bed with your date that night and have sex because, right away, are you okay there? So, because right away, the first thing that's going to come into your mind, why are you laughing? It's true. Like, yes, I understand. Okay, we will get into the psychology of sexual needs during this time at a different episode, but my point is, those things will not be the first thing on your mind. You're gonna be looking out for yourself because even a sneeze right now is gonna make you think, oh my God, virus, right? And that's a very normal reaction. Like, jokes aside, and see, we make light of certain situations because it's the only way to like deal with it. Because when you really think about it, you'll be like, it does scare you. Like, if you really think about the situation, like the fact that you have to live and deal with yourself in solitude and react in a certain way with another human being, which is not what you're used to, is a very different shift in your mind and system. But I'm going off topic. So point being is that yes, we're definitely not ready to go back to normal. There's a lot of factors that we cannot control. There's a lot of fear that's still there outside, and there's a lot of adjustments that we have to do. Unfortunately, big retailers, big stores, they're the ones who will be suffering. Whether we like it or not, our minds are not in shopping for the latest brands. But if you have that lifestyle and you still have that income coming in, what you will be geared towards is still supporting those brands and designers, and what they'll be doing is like shifting into a more pandemic friendly way of shopping, which is again another conversation we can have. But in terms of going back to normal, that's not going to be the case. I personally don't think we are ready for phase one or whatever it is. I think we definitely, whether you're in the States, whether you're in Canada, and around the world, we definitely need more time before we even think of opening certain things up, even if it's smaller, front-facing stores or restaurants or even gardens and things like that. If you guys want to go for a walk outside your building if that's where you live. If you want to sit outside on the grass, and if you have a backyard, go sit there. That's your fresh air for now, and that's your like nature, and that's totally okay too. I do it all the time, and I'm fine. So, point being is that, I'm sorry, was there something funny about that?
Please continue.
So, point being is that there are ways to get what you need without having to do any of the phases. Yes, from a spending and paycheck point, it's very difficult. Listen, I'm a self-employed freelancer. This has impacted me in so many different ways. How I'm managing and still dealing with my day-to-day expenses or my family expenses, is something that myself and a lot of other people who are in my boat are doing. But it doesn't mean that we're saying, hey, let's start phase one and let's go back to this, because we will be back in this situation sooner than later. So we have to be smart about these things. And yes, to end my rant, because I know I've been ranting on this,
Sorry, you're at about 7 minutes and counting.
Please support local businesses, guys. Like, if you are going to shop for things that are outside groceries and medications and things like that, support local. What goes around comes around, and this is just not a saying. It's actually true, and I experience it, in many different ways, and I'm sure a lot of people do. What goes around comes around. Support your local businesses, and we just take it as it comes. So yes, I am done.
You didn't say your closing statement.
Which one?
It's your mantra. Your mantra for you have to be joining, but your closing one, they usually use it. It's your 2020 mantra.
Oh yeah, and of course, I mean, I have a lot of things for 2020 that I've reshifted on, but you do you. You do you, boo, always, no matter what happens. If someone's an asshole, you know what? You let them be an asshole.
Okay,
It
was supposed to be a one-line statement, not a whole another 7-minute rant. So let's just end with the statement.
You do you, homie. You do you, bro. You do you, boo. You just do you, and I mean that in all the senses you could possibly take from this right now.
All right, perfect. I'm now waking up from my eyes being awake sleep. Thank you very much for that 7-minute podcast that you just created for yourself, Rashi. And for all the listeners, thank you for tuning in and continuing to support us. If you didn't get a chance, please go listen to our 1-year anniversary podcast that we just put out last week. We just completed our first year of the show, and we're very excited about that and excited about things coming up in the future. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
You do you.
Oh God,
bye.
Hey guys, thank you for watching that podcast or that video. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more of us and see some of our behind the scenes stuff, subscribe below.
Yes, hit that little red button thingy that's over there and hit subscribe and keep following us for a lot more cool fun stuff.
Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you soon.